Welcome in to the At the Yard podcast, episode 138, as we are marching towards the start of the high school baseball season here in the Golden State. We're here to break it all down for you. Once again, joined by Hank LoForte, Vinnie Alfino, and Stephen Hardesty. I am Les Lukach, and gentlemen, another season is upon us. We've been releasing a bunch of preview articles, looking at some of the top leagues, some of the top players. I don't know about you guys, but this is about as excited as I've been for a high school baseball season, minus the weather that's coming, of course, in a long time, man. It's just loaded in the state of California.
Yeah, I'm super excited. This is the deepest this region, north of LA up the Central Coast, High Desert and Bakersfield. Like I'm going through trying to write up these preview articles, and last year it was really easy to go, okay, I think this team's going to win. I think this team's going to win. It's like I've got some leagues where I can take every team in the league almost and go and make a case for them to win their league. So it's going to be a lot of fun and a lot of a competition.
Similar to San Diego, Vinny. I mean, just this is a deep year in San Diego from a team perspective, but from a player perspective too.
Yeah, I think that there's, a lot of returning teams that are going to be really senior heavy in the upper class portion of their rosters, which I think is kind of going to help, kind of build out their season. I think a lot of teams, they kind of go through some phases where it's like, okay, we have a young core, and by the time these guys are seniors, it's going to be a really time for us to contend. I think you're going to see a number of those teams in San Diego this year. And then in terms of talent, I think we talked about in other podcasts, like the 2028 class is really deep in San Diego, and that's something I'm really excited to see this spring.
And Hank, certainly last but not certainly not least, NorCal. We've been talking about it for a couple of years. Like this is the year, I think, where NorCal really makes a statement, man, because there is just a ton of good players up there.
Yeah, there's almost too many players to cover, honestly. I'm sure you guys go through that too, but just from going from about like Fresno up and through the Chico area, it's like, any direction you could pick, it's like, oh, there's a stud this way, there's a stud that way. And so I think, like you said, there's tons of talent this year, and I think every year too, but something about this year, and I think with all the momentum of the preseason events, we were able to see those players that we usually don't. And, I think with such big state, I think we'll find even more guys this season.
Yeah, that preseason All-State podcast, we covered, I think like 30 players between you and Hardy that were just standouts from that event. And I think we may have left a few off just for time consideration, right? We've been talking about players for hours there.
Yeah.
But, be sure to check out prepbaseballreport.com. Like I said, we've released a bunch of preview articles for the upcoming season. And Hank, we're going to start with you because, NorCal, like we just said, is loaded. It's deep. There's a lot of really good teams. And as we look ahead, not to get too far ahead of ourselves, but, next year, a state championship is on the books potentially for, finally for the first time in the state of California. But I mean, you're looking at some teams in NorCal who are certainly going to make a run at not only their section championships, but the regional championships. And let's start out of the Sac Joaquin section with Rodriguez High School. They seem to be really deep this year.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of Rodriguez. Coach Beasley does an outstanding job over there. I've known him for a while. But I think they're not even that old, which is the part that I like, is it's a lot of 28s, couple good freshmen, and then, they got a couple seniors here and there. But, as far as terms of a dark horse team out here, I think I picked them as one of them just because I saw them play at Whitney last year for a playoff game, and they were just a bunch of bullies. They didn't care if they were freshmen, sophomore. It was play the game hard, run hard, play defense behind your guy. And you could tell they weren't phased at all. They have a really good group of 28s that I personally like. And then the 27 class is really good too. But I think they went 20-10 last year, did really good in the league, but they had a really good playoff run too. And I think just, knowing Beasley and how he coaches those guys, they're going to be a tough team to beat. Just, there's no hard outs. There's no easy outs, sorry, in that lineup. And, they're just tough kids. And I think that plays a long way, at the end of the day when it's you versus the pitcher. So, I think Rodriguez is going to make a good little run. We could talk about their players, but, it's just, I think they have a really solid core group they can build around. And, it helps when you have a good skip too.
Yeah, no doubt. And I know you've been high on those guys since going back to last spring, and it's just exciting when you mentioned like the youth on the team, right? When those guys play older than what they are, I mean, that really turns you on from an evaluation process, right?
Yeah, even just being in the dugout, talking to some of the guys, and it was like, they were so pumped to be at Whitney, and they didn't care about who they were, and so they won, and you can see why.
Yeah, no doubt. And Vinny, let's kick it down to San Diego with you. Patrick Henry looks again on paper to have a really loaded team.
Yeah, they come back, lost in the Open Division Championship last year to Granite Hills. I think last year was kind of just Granite Hills' year to make a run. They had a really deep senior class and kind of just ran away with San Diego. But Patrick Henry gave him a good run in the championship. It was a scoreless game until the 6th. Granite Hills ended up pulling it out, but Patrick Henry comes back with a lot of their, core guys really in their senior class now. And I think, they kind of deserve the right going into the Power 25 to kind of be the team that we talk about first for San Diego, even though there's a couple of really good teams we're going to get into. But they just come back with a lot of pitching, I think. Seniors, Tyson Bobo, the Gunn brothers. They come back with their outfield returning in the senior class. They just have a really good, upper class core that I think is going to ride them kind of through the spring. And when you get into league play, like when you have guys like Jimmy Gunn and Tyson Bobo on any given league day, I think it's going to give them a chance to win and have a chance to repeat in the league. But that kind of gets me into another team, within the Western League and Cathedral Catholic. I think that's kind of just a two-headed monster in the Western League. Those are the two teams that we talked about in the Power 25 a little bit with the rankings. Cathedral Catholic comes back with a really deep senior core. Alex Harrington, Caden Kuhn, Hunter Harrington. Like we talked about earlier, like a lot of teams in San Diego have a deep upper class, and I think the Western League is really headlined with that with top arms. So those are kind of the two teams in San Diego going in that I think are kind of the picks to click, and I'm excited to kind of target them, especially in league play, because it's going to be exciting.
Yeah, no doubt. And speaking of excitement, Hardy, chaos is the theme here with the league you wanted to talk about here. And I know nobody loves chaos more than you do when it comes to high school baseball. And the Marmani League, it looks like it's going to be one hell of a ride here in 2026.
It is. I went a little off script here and decided to focus in on a league versus a specific team because I think this league is going to be one of the most fun to follow. It's a 6-team league, and legitimately, I can make a case for every single team in the Marmani League to have a shot at winning it this year. Like, there's no one team that jumps out. Westlake's kind of been the class of the league for a few years, and they look just as good as ever. I mean, what Coach Wally Barnett does there with his guys and just getting new talent, getting talent better, getting guys to buy into playing as a team and competing, like they're probably the favorite. But then I look across the way and you've got Calabasas with Coach Thomas Cassidy, who always gets his guys to play above their ability. And that's not to say that they're bad players. Right. They're very good players, and he gets them to play above that. And he's got some really, really good 2028 talent, like Vinny talked about in San Diego. Same thing there. Yeah. And you go to Agora. Agora's got a loaded freshman class. And, if these guys can figure out the varsity level quickly, they're going to be scary, especially when they got Tyler Starling and Braden Oliver leading it, both Division I commits. You go into Thousand Oaks, who one of my former players, the head coach, and they made a surprising run last year. I thought they were a year away and got all the way to the semifinals of Division 4, Division 5. I can't remember which one it was in. Lost to Dos Pueblos, but he got those guys playing really well, and almost that entire group is back. He's got a really good team. Newberry Park is always good. Oaks Christian, like, Oaks is just loaded,
Loaded.
and it's so hard for me to just go, this team's going to win that league. And I think it's going to be so much fun. I'm going to look up at the end of the year, and if whoever wins it, wins it, I'm going to say I'm not surprised. And whoever finishes in last, I'm going to go, man, it's just somebody got hot and somebody got cold. So it's going to be a really, really fun year in that league. And then Les, you get to kick it off with probably the belle of the ball here, the the loaded St. John Bosco Braves.
Yeah, I mean, you guys, you and Hank both mentioned, the coaching jobs at those respective schools that you talked about. And I mean, you got to tip your cap to what Andy Rojo's done there at St. John Bosco in such a short time. I mean, to win the Trinity League, to win CIF Division I, and then a Southern Regional Championship all in the same year is unprecedented. Heck, winning Trinity League and winning CIF Southern Section D1 is unprecedented. So,
Yeah.
It was a grind there. Santa Margarita gave them everything they had, but I mean, they return a lot of really key pieces and then get help with, the return of Julian Garcia, who recently is up to 96, at that area code select deal. He's got scouts buzzing about his potential. James Clark obviously is widely considered a first round pick, but I mean, it's not just two guys, right? I mean, you got Jed O'Hara, who is an electric outfielder for them, going to USC. Jack Champlin, who established himself as probably the best closer in CIF last year. My guess is that he'll return to a starting role for them as well. Don't forget about Jaden Jackson, left-handed hitting outfielder, DH, that's going to UCLA. I mean, that guy's built like a brick outhouse, man. I saw them at MLK, and yeah, he might be 5'11", but dude, he looks like he's got about 3% body fat on what is he, big chisel.
Looks like an NFL running back.
Totally. Yeah, totally. And then, for good measure, we got a sophomore who is an elite level, national team type water polo player in Braden Krakowski. You got Griffin Tagliaferri going to Long Beach State. And don't forget who was arguably their best arm last year in Gavin Cervantes, 8-0 last year. So, I mean, Bosco's absolutely loaded once again, but the interesting thing for them is going to be, they're playing the role of hunted now versus the hunter. Yeah. And, how do they respond to that? So, I mean, the target is squarely on their back. Circle your calendars for that Olu Bosco series in late March, early April, because that's going to be, potentially the series of the year, at least in my book. I mean, early on, those two teams are deep. We'll get into Olu here in a little bit, but, again, tip of the cap to what Rojo and his staff have done over there at Bosco, because they got that thing humming and they're deep, they're good in their 28, 29 classes are good. And so they're going to just kind of reload as a lot of these, programs, do here in SoCal. So it's going to be exciting to see what they do. And then Hank, you decided to take a trip up to darn near the California-Oregon border for your next team here with Chico. In Chico High, that area there's always good players that come out of that area, right? They just don't get the visibility and the publicity. So I was excited when you decided to choose Chico to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, you guys all remember we took Boatwright to future games, so that was kind of like our first Chico kid we had. I wanted to pick this team because they went 28-2 last year, and so for a team up in Chico, it's far from up here, so the baseball's it could be hit or miss is what I'm trying to get at. And this is a team that was pretty senior heavy last year, but they had a really good group of core young guys, and I think that's kind of been the trend of these teams is get a good group of core guys, and they're kind of going to lead the way, So, with this team, I think losing a lot of seniors is going to hurt, but I think, like I said, that young group's going to carry it. So, 28-2 overall, they went all the way to the D2 championships. They lost to Alcalanes, but, big chip on their shoulder, but I think they're going to be, they're going to hold their weight. They got some transfers coming in. And I think with their young stars like, Boatwright, and you got this, this kid Jackson Tweet I keep hearing about that hit over 500 last year. You know, and a lot of these kids in Chico are multi-sport athletes. And so it's kind of like a Fresno deal up there. But, you know, I think once these kids stick to one sport, they're going to be even better than what we see on the surface right now. And so I think, you know, with these Chico guys, it's hard to find them, but they're up there. So I think we'll see if they can go back to that D2 championship this year.
Yeah, that ball that boat ride hit at the Future Games off the fence, man, that was something else, man. That thing got there in a hurry, no doubt. All right, Ben, let's go back down to San Diego and another powerhouse program, longtime powerhouse program, Rancho Bernardo. They've had some success there under Jeff Bombach, and they look to continue that again this year.
Yeah, so Rancho was the runner-up in 24 in the Open Division. They were the runner-up last year in Division 1. And it's funny, like last year, I think you could say it was somewhat of a down year for them being a runner-up in Division 1. Just they were coming off a big year in 24. But those two teams are coming back with these guys now being seniors. So I think this year is really a year for them to make a deep run. I think they're the favorite again to win the Coastal League, which is going to be a very interesting league down here in San Diego. And like I said, a lot of their top guys are now in their senior year with a lot of experience at the varsity level. They've been in, you know, deep playoff waters in the past. So, you know, I think that they're seasoned to make a good run this year, headlined by Owen Glick, Hugo Gonzalez, you know, two middle or top of the order bats for them, catcher and shortstop, two leaders for them, I think, in the middle of their field. And a guy that's been a top arm in San Diego for a while is Caden Dawkin. He's just a guy that logs a lot of innings for Rancho Bernardo. Has pitched a lot of big games for them going to UC San Diego next year. I think that they're really going to rely on him to pitch big innings for them in league play. But their best returning hitter is still uncommitted, in my opinion. That's Brady Strachan. He had over 400 last year down in San Diego.
Yeah.
Seemed to be on the barrel a lot. Corner outfield bat that I think, you know, could still help a college program out there. I think he's going to have a big season down here in San Diego. So they were another team for me that kind of was a pick to click. And I think it's just because they're coming off two impressive seasons and now these guys are seniors. And I think they're just ready to make a big run and make noise down here.
Yeah, Strachan was really impressive at that Inland Empire event we ran before last year. And I mean, that carried over into the season for him, obviously. But he's one of those guys, like you said, I mean, college coaches still looking to fill in their roster. I mean, that's a dude I would start there if I'm looking for an outfielder. And Hardy, I mean, again, more chaos.
It's going to be the theme of all this area this year.
Man, absolutely. Like, because I look at the Mission League, and like you said, with the last league you talked about, the Marmani League, like you could make a case for a lot of teams in this league to walk away with the championship.
Yeah, I'm going to probably – I've already started to catch some crap from some people on what I put in my article of picking – I've been high on Sierra Canyon for 3 years, and I'm going to keep riding it because I think this might finally be the year. I think I've been a little early on them because they were so young, but now the likes of Desi Delgado, Grayson Goulage, Sean Paro, Armando Solario, Caius Howard. Like I can keep going and listing these players that are now juniors and seniors with 3 and 4 years of Mission League experience that are being bolstered by Theo Swafford, Jordan Leone, Marquise Johnson Jr. Just keep going beyond that. Braden Goldstein, like these guys that are now starting to make their names. I think they finally have that combination that they can break through that ceiling of, hey, we're in competition to we're going to be the team dogpiling at the end of the year. And I will say I've gotten some crap from some Harvard Westlake kids about this of like, hey, come see the series. And I love that. Like they got a chip on their shoulder. And I mentioned in the article, you can't count Harvard Westlake out. Like they are the class of the Mission League. They're there every year. Even if they don't win it, they're there every single year. What Jared Halpert and Joe Guntz do there, you've said this and we've all said this, they don't rebuild, they reload there. And they've got three outstanding freshmen that are going to come in right away and make an impact in that program. They still got Tronny Barrels, maybe one of my favorite players that I've ever covered. He looks like he's taken it up a level after a bit of a down junior year. They got Ethan Price, who just continues to get better. They got the Red Panther, and they got Jake Kim bombs. They've got
Jake
Jake
Kim.
Kim bombs. And I'm just gonna say, Jake Kim was the one who came at me and said, "Hey, come see this series. We want them." And I said, "Okay, Jake, I love it. Like, does that mean I get a Jake Kim bomb?" And he said, "There's a good chance." So but you said it. Like, there's nobody in the Mission League you can count out. Crespi won it last year. Yes, they lost a ton, but they're going to be competitive. Yep. Notre Dame, I was super high on them last year, and they got hurt. They had some guys not play up to their normal abilities. Like, they're going to be in the mix. Loyola, from what I've heard, has just loaded in the lower classes. And who knows, like, these guys figure out the varsity level quickly. You know, St. Francis was in a championship game 2 years ago. So it is a league that if the Trinity's the class of California in the nation, the Mission's right there as the number 2 with probably that West Catholic League up in the Bay Area.
8 bombs this winter for Trani and 6 for Jake Kim.
He was a little pissed that Kim beat him last year as the leader on the team. So I think Trani said, "Jake, I'm coming for you."
Yeah. I was just told that this morning. So,
but when we talk about programs and we talk about teams that don't rebuild, they reload. This next team you're going to talk about, Les, is maybe the epitome of that in Huntington Beach.
You know, for a public school, right? What they do is just so impressive. I saw them, a week and a half ago or last week, and I mean, you see them warming up, and I shared this with my son's team when we're trying to get them to hold each other accountable. It's like these guys were on the field stretching, warming up. There wasn't a coach in sight, right? Coaches weren't even in the dugout. They weren't even to the field yet. They got stuck in a little bit of traffic, but it's that sort of expectation of leadership that comes with playing at that program, that has this program at the top every year, right? And you got to start with Jared Grinlinger, the prep baseball All-American. It's a legit two-way talent. He hits tanks, he hits gaps, he hits everything, good pitching, bad pitching. And oh, by the way, he's 95, 96 on the mound.
Yeah.
And you're just kind of like,
must be rough.
Yeah.
From the left side.
But it's like
sounds subpar.
Yeah. You start to look at their pitching rotation. And you're like, well, okay, like they don't have anybody beyond Grinlinger, right? Well, that's not accurate. You got, Jared Marchbank going to New Mexico State. You got Caden Hammond going to BYU, Christian Hopp going to Cal State Fullerton. And oh, by the way, you got Tanner Brown, who was a one-time TCU commit, who I saw throw the other night. And it's a legit 3-pitch mix. Yeah, the velo hasn't ticked up as one may have wanted or anticipated, but I mean, the kid really knows how to pitch, right? So, I mean, you've got 5 Division I level arms. One's in Grinlinger is probably going to be a draft pick, and then you look at the lineup, and I think I texted you guys in the middle of the game, like there are no holes in this lineup, right? I mean, at the top, you've got our guy Elijah Mason, then you go Grinlinger, then you go Leoff, and then, oh, by the way, you got Jason Dunham, you got Owen Bone, who's going to Long Beach State. Owen Bone is going to Cal Baptist. Dane Cunningham, the shortstop, going to SLO. Sol Mariyama is an uncommitted player for them who might be one of their better hitters from the left side. It's just like, dude, like where are the outs in this lineup? And it's just so deep. It's so talented. And, in talking to a couple of the players after the game, what they told me was the freshman class is really, really good. And there's just not a lot of positions or opportunity available for them on the varsity level. So, I mean, like you said, Hardy, next year when these guys move on, these seniors, guess what? We've got another batch of guys coming in that are going to, have a chance to win their league, at their JV level or freshman level, whatever level the coaches put them on. So it's just really impressive what Coach Bedore has built there, man. And going into, I think, his 26th year, right? I mean, his pitching coach has been
Think about that. Like a public school coach that's been there for 26 years, the level of respect that has.
Yeah. And like he got the job at what, like 24 or 25?
Yeah. He had to figure it out on the job. He didn't get to train. It was figure it out. Look what he's done.
Right. And, but the thing that I think that Benji and I did a podcast with him, I think it was either last year or the year before, and he attributed it to was his assistants, right? Like His pitching coach is an on-campus teacher, been with him for like 18 years. His hitting coach, on-campus teacher, been with him for like 15 years. Right. So when you have that ability to, hey, little Ricky's screwing around in class, you walk in and give him that death stare. I mean, that resonates, right? And versus, oh, you hear about it 2 days later and you try to address it. I mean, that sort of level of accountability and visibility of the coaches being on campus, I mean, you can't undersell that. And, and Hank, the team, your next team, they have that as well, being a private school, but they've got those on-campus coaches, and they're in the top 5 for us. I believe number 4 for us in our preseason Power 25, and that's De La Salle.
Yeah, I mean, you could tell the similarities between the two schools is, they obviously have a system, the kids buy into it, and, it works. So, both coaches, you can applaud them. They're obviously doing something right there. But, De La Salle, they won it all last year. I'm thinking they could. Yeah, again. And I think they can do it again. Rather, they did have a bunch of seniors, but it's like, they obviously have Tyler Spangler. That's been the talk of the area. It's like, is he going to sign? Is he going to go to college? We don't know. But he's obviously the shortstop. You got guys like Jacob Gray who are, following Spangler's path. And then they got some good arms too. You got, Graham Schlitt, who's going to Stanford as well with Spangler, Roman Bartosh, Cooper Barnes, Ethan Reselman, like guys that are all going to throw for them and who are D1 quality arms. And I think too, with the same trend down there is their core group is really good of young guys. And, I saw a couple in some preseason IDs. There's a kid, Brandon Monavong, he's kind of in that Spangler, Gray shortstop realm, and I think they do a really good job of keeping their guys close and, getting their exposure out. But, it's hard when you go, what'd they go, 29-4 last year and go 12-1 in that league. But
they go 30-3.
Yeah, right. And they're kind of like that SoCal powerhouse up here.
Yeah.
That's like
totally
the best way I want to put it. But they're a really tough team. They're well coached, and I think they actually come down to you, Vinny. They play St. Augustine and Cathedral in early March, so you can probably get some eyes on that.
And they're in the National Classic, so
they're coming south twice this year.
Yeah, they'll be down there twice. So I mean, that's a good. You guys can see one of the best teams down here, and I know Les saw them in the what was it, MLK weekend?
Yep.
How that ball's still going from Spangler?
Hasn't landed yet.
Dude, that thing was crushed.
Yeah, no, and like I know everyone sees it too, but he's got the makeup for it, and I think with a lot of these kids too is they're really good kids to talk to. They're not arrogant, they're not egos or following them. It's you can chop it up 5-10 minutes, and you don't even have to talk about baseball. So, I mean, I think that's it's been fun getting to know these kids. Huh?
Sorry to cut you off, but I think that's like a big difference between some of the SoCal guys and the NorCal guys, right? Like just being the NorCal guys are so much more, it seems, at least on the surface, like approachable and like willing to have a conversation. Right. Yeah. Willing to have a conversation, right? Like that dugout at the Future Games last year, the NorCal one.
So much different.
Dude, it was night and day, right? Like whereas
it was a lot of personalities up here, and I think it's just so diverse up here, in every direction you go. And it's like you get a dugout full of a bunch of 25 guys from all different areas. It's like we're gonna have a bunch of different personalities mix, and you're gonna have like 10 knuckleheads mixed with like maybe 2 quiet guys, and it's just fun to like get to know the kid.
Yeah, no doubt. Vinny, a team that we've gotten to know some of the players on there pretty well over the last years, and a team that I don't know if you picked them to win the league or not. I can't remember, but I think you did. Temecula Valley appears on the surface to have some really good, talented players, and should be the cream of the crop in that Southwestern League.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that they come back with another team, just a lot of guys who are seasoned and have been at the varsity level for a couple of years now, and just seeing that they're ready to make noise in their junior and senior year. They're our team, I think, that's going to win the Southwestern League as an early pick. I think they're just going to be one of the best teams overall in my area, just in terms of the games that I'm going to cover. They snuck into our Power 25 for preseason. I wouldn't be surprised if they're a team that could make a jump as the spring progresses. Um, One of their best returning hitters, another uncommitted guy at 2027, Stafford Johnson. He was at our West Coast games, left-handed hitter. Just seems he just barrels everything. Can go line to line. Doesn't matter. He has the arm to stick at shortstop. Hit 450 last year in a very good league. I think that and that was as a sophomore. So now he's a junior. I think you're going to continue to see that hit tool progress. Chase Hill, another left-handed bat. He performed in multiple live looks going to TCU after his senior year. Tating Krogs going UCLA up to 93 in the fall when I saw him at the MLB Scout League. Two-way guy for them, going to be right in the middle of their order once again, going to be top of their rotation, logging a lot of innings. And I could just go down the list. They got a lot of returning bats. 4 guys hit over 350 for them last year. So I think it's just a roster that now these guys are sophomores and juniors last year, juniors and seniors this year. Just another team that's kind of set to make a run in 26.
Yeah, Stafford Johnson was so damn impressive at the West Coast games. I mean, it's a smooth,
effortless.
Yeah, it's so nice, so nice. He's a guy that 6'2", 6'3". I mean,
we have a different conversation.
It's a different conversation. But dude, I'd take 9 of those guys. You're going to win a lot of games.
Absolutely.
Hardy, we're going to go back up to the Coastal Canyon League and 2 teams that you've been on for, 3 years now. In Royal and Simi Valley, nobody knew Colton Rayner, I should say, and Dunwoody, and a lot of these guys on these teams. And I remember, 2 years ago, you're like, dude, these guys are really good. These guys are really good, Les. We gotta get these guys. And sure enough, Dunwoody, came out to future games and was electric. But Coastal Canyon League again looks like it should be a really good league.
It's going to be a fun one, and I like this because Royal and Simi are maybe 5 miles apart. These kids all grew it's a straight shot on the same road, and if you hit all red lights, you can be there in 5 minutes. It's a war when these 2 teams, it came down to the last week of the season, and I was all over Royal, and out of nowhere, Simi, and I shouldn't say out of nowhere, Simi's consistently good every single year, but they just never let off the gas from the beginning of the season. I believe they got into the Easton Tournament Championship game to open the year, and then it just kept going and going, and then they wind up upsetting Royal, and I'm going to call it an upset, even though, because I think Royal was so loaded last year. I was stunned that Simi did it, and not knocking Simi. It's just Royal was loaded last year, but Simi played as this group of just competitors, grinders, and I think it's going to be the exact same way this year. You look at Royal, they're 4 deep with Division I pitchers. It's a 2-game-a-week league, so that basically means every single inning this year is probably going to be thrown by a Division I commit. They've got experience in the outfield, experience on the infield. They've got a senior catcher that's now going to be a 3rd-year starter, I believe. It's either 2, possibly 3 years. And Simi on the other side, they've got Kyle Casey, who is the funky lefty, doesn't throw harder than 85, but he's got a plus change. He knows how to pitch. It's a weird look. He comes from this low slot. They've got a rising freshman who's up to 86, 87 from the left side. And their kid last year, who I believe was 10-0, Jackson Goshorn, might go into the bullpen for them because they also need him to play in the outfield. This is going to be a battle between 2 schools where everybody on this roster probably played against each other in Little League and Pony Ball or Travel Ball or played with each other. It's such a fun environment when those 2 get together, and it's going to be awesome. And that doesn't even count Moore who I think could be very, very sneaky this year. They were a D2 championship appearance. They were a controversial call away from a dog pile 2 years ago. I think they're going to be in the mix again this year. And freaking Camarillo, they just keep doing it. They win it 2 years ago. They get to the semis last year. TJ Foreman does such a good job there. It's going to be such a fun league. That's been the theme of this area. I think it's leagues over teams because there's so many good teams here. But I talked about Sierra Canyon and being a team that's waiting to break through. And we've got another one out in the Inland Empire who's going to try to break a 2-year stranglehold in a very good league, and that's Norco.
Yeah, I mean, these guys, you look at the roster and just what we know of these players, and I mean, it's loaded, right? Obviously, the number 2 player in the country in the 27 class, Dylan Seward, start with him. I mean, that's a big league shortstop waiting to happen. Switch hitter, got power from both sides, but it's more than just a one-trick pony, right? Zion Martinez, who we had at the Future Games this last summer, left-handed bat that can leave the yard on any pitch, will also play the middle infield for them. Elijah Alvarez.
I think if Zion went to any other school,
he'd be
he would
playing
probably play
shortstop.
short.
Right, he'd be the starting shortstop.
No, totally.
That's just it's stupid down there.
Right, and he'll probably get a shot at shortstop at Oklahoma State, would be my guess, where he's committed. Elijah Alvarez, the outfielder, hit 325. He's going to CSUN. Jaden Cerna was a really good catcher / first baseman for them. He's going to Santa Barbara. Marcus Blanton, who we had at the state games, if you guys recall. I love this guy. He can run.
He was at the OC Summer ID too. Very good there.
Yeah, he can run. He can really defend, and he can hit. He can hit for a little bit of power as well. A little bit of a down year, hit 280 last year, but I expect a big bounce back from him. Jordan Ayala on the mound, and he's a two-way guy, hit 278 for them. Then you get a couple of transfers, and Cody Brown, who was out at the Future Games with us, a catcher committed to Santa Barbara. Jacob Melendez, who will play first base and pitch for them from the left side. Oh, by the way, you got a senior in Landon Hobermill going to GCU as a pitcher, and it's just a really deep team, man. Riley Moran, who I know, Hardy, you and I both really like, will get innings for them as well as a senior. Vincent Rodriguez, Michael Montoya, Blake McHugh. I mean, the pitching staff, the offense, it's a really deep team. And like you said, that 2-year stranglehold that Corona had on that Big 8 league is in jeopardy, though we're not totally ready.
No, we're not calling that yet, but we're saying.
I'm not
we're
making any predictions.
it.
This is not a prediction podcast. So, we tried that once and paid the price. But, Corona, who I'll talk about next, is you can't sleep on them, obviously, with what Coach Wise does, but what Coach Parcell has done at Norco over his 20 plus years is just really, really impressive. And it's a team that you could easily see, playing that last game of the season, for a D1 championship, because they have the depth, they have the talent, but more importantly, kind of like you mentioned with Royal and Simi, a lot of these guys have been playing together growing up, and you can't discount that, man. I mean,
plays into the competition.
Bragging rights, like I don't want to lose to my buddy. I'm going to see him out around town somewhere, and I don't want to hear it.
Right. And you just can't discount the value of playing alongside, somebody for 4, 5, 6 years either. So, Norco is loaded, a team up in the Central Coast, Hank, who's also loaded, more than just a one-man band up there. St. Ignatius, they're in our Power 25 that you can find on prepbaseballreport.com. But St. Ignatius has the look of a team that could compete once we get to that kind of regional championship with De La Salle.
Well, speaking of that, they open up against each other first game of the year. So
there you go.
It kind of works out perfect. But this is a senior heavy team, 8 returning starters. So I think that kind of says a lot. You got experience, leadership, and you got the man Archer Horn kind of leading the charge. And we've obviously all seen Archer, and the kid is a stud, right? Yeah. And I think he's projected more right now as a, shortstop hitter rather than a pitcher. But, he can hop on the mound and it's still 90, 93. He's got a bender and, it's legit still. He'll be going to Stanford. I don't think the record last year, don't let it fool you. It was 17-10, but these guys are going to be coming back with, some fire. They got a big senior group. I think 6 D1 commits they have. Obviously you got Archer leading the way. DJ Delaney, who's going to UNR.
Yeah.
That could be a kid who gets to college campus and, hits 10 his first year. And especially with the elevation.
Such a good swing.
Yeah.
Such a good swing.
Swing's pretty. Oh, yeah.
Oh,
They have a kid, Chase Gordon, two-way, going to Northridge. He's like a 6'3" lefty, kind of goofy, but, he's another – huh? Yeah, a little goofy.
That's what they're supposed to be. If he's normal, we'd worry about him.
And then they have two kids, AJ Weininger and Ryan Rosenthal. They're both going to Puget Sound. And then they have another two-way kid, Luke Vanderbrake, who's a football guy, and he just committed to Pacific. And, with the core group like that, it's like, all right, those are our guys. They've all been playing together. So, especially having that feel of opening up against the De La Salle, I think that opening round is going to be kind of crazy. And, not to mention, like I talked about the committee guys, but they have a lot of guys that, played last year that came back and, guys that have came out to the preseason stuff, RJ Church, Leo Rain, those guys are, not committed, but those are guys that, they're uncommitted, but, I wouldn't be surprised if they pick a school soon. And then they also have a bunch of like younger guys that are in the system that kind of like the whole De La Salle thing of get the younger guys up, get them going, and then they'll kind of lead the way. So I think with SI, they have a lot to prove this year, but they have more than enough talent to, show everybody.
Yeah, that first game is going to be something else. I'm sure you'll be parked right behind the plate there watching that one for sure.
Either me or Roan Dog. One of us.
Ronan.
Shout out Ronan. Vinnie, the Elsinore team, you saw them last year a couple times. I know you saw them in the regular season and you saw them in the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously they have a player who you'll talk about here a little bit later at shortstop, but this is a team that I think is built for another run again this year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, Elsinore, saw them in the semis against Camarillo last year, and then they ended up winning that game, ended up taking the Division 5 CIF title in the Southern section, and they come back with a lot of pieces from that team, headlined by, obviously, Andrew Jimenez, who I'll talk about in a little bit, but Jacob Farias, who was at our OC preseason ID, up to 89 on the mound. He's 86, 88, two-way guy. I talked about him on another podcast. Ended up winning that CIF title game for them, going 5 innings, was up to 86, 88 in that game. And they have another headline starter that's going to get a lot of innings for them. Braden Stankus, he comes back after having a 7-2 season last year. I saw him twice throw last year. His big body right-hander, 6'4", probably 215 pounds. Going to log a lot of innings in their starting rotation. He's 85, 87. And I think that they just have a lot of returning guys that are now, they were more sophomores and juniors last year, but it's going to be a lot of junior seniors. It's just kind of a theme, it seems like, kind of down in my area this year. Just a lot of teams that are built for this specific season in 2026. And I think that they're going to win with their bats. I think that they have the 2 headline starters, but their lineup is, they can thump a little bit. And I think you're going to see that. It's a hitter's park at Elsinore, and I think that you're going to see, a lot of high scoring gains for them. I think they're the favorites again to win the Mountain Pass League. I think it's them and Temescal Canyon. They were head to head last year. I think that they had a share of a title last season. I think it's going to be much of the same, but Elsinore comes back, and I think they're just built to make another run.
Yeah, the Jimenez kid, man, he's got a chance to be special, man. He's darn good. He's darn good. Speaking of good, Hardy, let's kick it over to Bakersfield, right? We're going to take a little trip up the 5 freeway here. Bakersfield Christian, Ridgeview, a couple of the teams you're excited about in the South Yosemite League.
Yeah, Bakersfield has been, since I came on, this is year 3, an area that I've been itching to get into, and it's been a slow process, but we got out there with some events this summer. We went back in the fall, and we've started to identify the fact that we already knew there was a ton of talent out there. Now we're just getting a chance to really get eyes on these guys in a much easier way. And the Central Coast and Bakersfield kind of do the same thing, where it's the same league name, but then there's multiple different divisions. So in Bakersfield, it's the South Yosemite League. I think there's 4 different divisions. The Rivers, kind of the bigger schools, the higher populations, the Valleys, the second one below it, a little bit smaller schools, but they are loaded with talent. And you've got Bakersfield Christian out there, and you got Ridgeview, two schools that I'm really, really excited about this spring. Bakersfield, obviously, they dominated it last year. They made a really good run. They got into the Division Central Section Division One. Too many words there for me. And it's a tough one when you're a private school that's a smaller private school, and you get into that Division One Central Section. You're going up against some of those schools from the Fresno, Clovis area with 4,000 students. But they've got McCoy Silich. They've got Ryan Burgess, the catcher, who has really impressed me. Like, didn't know a lot about him and have kind of started diving into him. He's a Cal Baptist commit. Then they have one of my favorite players in that 26 class that's uncommitted in London Anderson, who is just a walking tool shed of things he can do on a baseball field. I think whoever finally commits that kid, he is such scratching the surface of what is a amazing profile. But then you kick it over to Ridgeview, and Ridgeview came in second to Bakersfield Christian. Their losses were to Bakersfield Christian. I think they were not quite there. They had some young guys who were getting very prominent roles on their team last year. Guys like Jacob Quintero, who were very high on. Edwin Hidalgo, who had a lightning good freshman year. They've got a kid named Joel Gutierrez, who's their ace, Fresno State commit, and this guy is a workhorse. Threw 86 innings last year for them. Yeah, 86 innings, but you want to top that. He also had a 1.3 ERA over those 86 innings. He struck out 96. He only allowed 21 runs on the entire season, earned or unearned. So he is a true ace, but behind them, they got a kid, Adrian Bravo, who came out to our summer ID up to 90 from the left-hand side, 4-pitch mix. He's another Fresno State commit who I talked to some people in the area. The talent's always been there. It was a question of strikes, and he's now throwing strikes at a much higher rate. So it's going to give them two guys. They got a kid, Martin Castro, who came to our preseason All-State. Talked about him on that podcast. He's going to give them a very good bullpen arm, power at the plate. Like, it's going to be a two-team race, and it's going to be a really fun two-team race out there in Bakersfield. And I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to make my way there to see Bakersfield Christians coming out here to play Oaks. But it's like, man, I think I might drive my way up over the 5 and go see one of these Bakersfield Christian Ridgeview games this year, because it's going to be a really good series with those two.
Yeah.
All right, you talked about them. They are the big dog. They're what can you say about them that doesn't say really, really good things? Right. Coach Andy Weiss and the Corona Panthers.
Yeah, we talked about Norco there, and they're hunting what Corona has, right? And that's the league championship, right? And I think when you talk about Corona this year, you talk about yet 2 more draft prospects, right? And it starts with Anthony Murphy and Trey Ebel. We'll go with Murph first. I mean, this is a guy that has been the leading hitter on that team that had 3 picks in the top.
Which is an astounding fact when you say
right.
that.
I mean, he's a leading hitter for the last 3 years. He also had 11 jacks last year for them, which led the team, and then Trey Ebel makes the move over to shortstop. It's a really good right-handed swing. By all accounts, just in conversations with Coach Wise, he's handled the transition to shortstop really, really well. And those 2 guys will be the table setters, right? And then you bring up some other guys like Danny De La Torre, I've been told has had a really good fall, led to a commitment to Arizona State. Logan Pascarella had a really good fall for them. The sophomore left-handed hitter will play some first base, may get a few innings on the mound. Evan Skelski, who we saw at the preseason All-State down in San Diego, Vinny, is going to find his way into the lineup somewhere. You got Hardy's boy Josiah Andrade, the catcher there, who had clutch hit after clutch hit for them last year. He had 330 for them last spring in that lineup, which is really impressive. Senior Kobe Finnegan.
He's a transfer, isn't he?
Yeah, he's gonna be a spark for them in their lineup. Another transfer, Jojo Flores, who we had with us out at future games. The list goes on and on. then you flip over to the mound, right? We lost Seth Hernandez. Well, yeah, that's a big loss when you lose the number 6 overall pick. But Mason Sims, the lefty going to Texas, is going to fill the role of ace for them. Chris Woodson is a sophomore that's been up to 92 for them. He'll be a two-way guy. So it's just, again, the theme here, right, with all these teams that I've talked about at least is we reload, we don't rebuild.
Yeah.
A down year is making it to the semifinals of Division One in CIF, which is absurd. But that series we talked about, the Olu Bosco series, that Norco Corona series, it's going to be electric, man. Those there's no love lost between those two teams, right? And that, like you mentioned earlier, Hardy, these schools in Royal and Simi, I mean, these schools are about 10 minutes away from each other, right? And kids grew up playing against one another. I mean, and there's just no love lost between the city of Corona and the city of so that's just going to be an electric environment. One I'm really looking forward to since the Big Eight went to those 3 games in a week. But Hank, we're gonna go again to another one of those schools. It's just a program. What Coach Prieto has done there is really awesome. At Clovis North there in the Fresno area.
Yep, Prieto does a great job out in the Fresno area. I love going to Fresno. All the fields are just pristine,
beautiful
out there.
So fun.
They look like college
Everyone's got
facilities.
lights.
They do.
Yeah, so I mean, I remember I went down last year to Fresno, and first game I saw was at Clovis North, and the one thing I love about it is they all take BP before the games, and so the one thing I noticed was like all these kids know baseball down there, like the small game, base running, like, it matters. So you could tell like when they play, and with a team like Clovis North, they are super senior heavy this year. I think it helps when you got a guy like Davis Wilson when you pitch behind. You know what you're going to get with him, especially we saw the summer he had and his whole process. But they got other guys too that are really good, and guys like Trevor Harper who came down, done some events for us. Nate Lopez is a senior infielder who should hold it down for him. But you can never really tell in that track league because the talent is just so good with all those schools. I mean, you got Buchanan, Clovis West, Clovis. I could go on and on about, and I think they play some Bakersfield schools too. They open up with Stockdale. You got Frontier in there. So it's just never an easy game for these guys. But then again, it's like, that's why I think we're going to meet up this year in Fresno, catch some games down there. And I think, we're going to find some more guys that we didn't even know about. So I think Coach Prieto's got a big chip on his shoulder, but then again, all these guys do down there. But yeah, I'm looking forward to getting out there.
Yeah, no doubt. Prieto does an amazing job. I've never been so cold as I was watching a Clovis North game during the Fresno Easter Classic like 3 or 4 years ago. Oh, dude, it was cold. The 7 p.m. game was not kind to me, and I certainly wasn't prepared for that level of cold. But Hardy, you started with some chaos. You're going to end with some chaos. Golden Foothill League. Once again, just looks like it's wide open, and these are schools that are right there in your neck of the woods.
Yeah, the Foothill League it's such a fun league. It's just like the Marmani in that it's deep, it's talented, and you very rarely can look at one team in the league and go, they're gonna dominate. And it's the same way again this year. You've got West Ranch, you've got Hart, you've got Valencia, you've got Saugus, you've got Castaic. Like, it is a 5-team, there's 7 in the league, but those 5 are probably just a tick above the other 2 that are working their way to get into that mix. But I seriously, when I was writing my preview article, I went back and forth 4 different times on my pick to click, my dark horse, my don't count out. It's like, I think I left Valencia and Saugus off of there, and if one of those teams wins the league, I will not be surprised whatsoever, and I will probably get crap for it. And hey, you didn't even pick us at the beginning of the year. Like, you have no idea how hard this league was to pick. I went with West Ranch. They're coming off a D2 championship. Yes, they lose Hunter Manning. Yes, they lose Nolan Stoll, but they're going to replace him with some really good pieces. I am so high on Ty Diaz. I'm so high on Connor Clayton, who went out to senior future games with us, Northridge commit.
yeah.
I think he's going to have a big senior year. I've always loved the hit. Now I'm seeing videos of him dropping bombs about every other week in the fall season. Castaic, they made a really good run. They've won a Division, I believe, 5 title. They are just this sneaky, and I'm going to talk about a sophomore there who's going to be really, really good for them. You know, Hart, how can you discount Hart? They won a D2 title. Like, that's the funny part. I'm like, going, okay, who's going to win the Foothill this year and then go win the Division 2 championship, because it's happened back-to-back years out of that league. It's going to be an absolute grind again for whoever wins that league. And that may hurt them when the playoff time comes, because it's not going to be an easy run, or it may set them up like the last 2 years that these teams are ready for the playoffs because they basically played playoff games for 6 straight weeks.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be another fun one. Like, the Marmani and the Foothill is going to be an utter roller coaster ride that's probably going to give me nausea all year long, but out of excitement. But you started it. I started it with chaos. You started it with maybe. And I thought of this meme when you were talking about St. John Bosco, and it's the old picture of LeBron James when he's in high school. And it's like, hey, I just took a math test and now I got to go guard LeBron James. Like, that's what I thought of when you talked about Huntington Beach and Olu's lineups. Like, dude, I just failed geometry, and now I got to go face Olu's lineup. This is going to be fun. So let's talk about Orange Lutheran.
Dude, I'm sure I probably missed 1 or 2, but 10 Division 1 commits, 9 of them are Power 4 schools. Okay.
Bonkers.
And I mean,
Juggernaut.
That's like insane to me, right? And you look at the lineup, and I think I texted you guys this too during that game. Like, there's no holes in this lineup either, right?
Yep. Yeah.
I mean, to me, it's one of the best lineups that you'll see. It's pretty unreal, right? And when you consider that your best hitter by average last year, who was a freshman in Zion Avina, was hitting 9th in this game. Like, I mean, that tells me just how deep this is. But you got to start with Brady Murrieta, another one of Hardy's favorite catchers here in Southern California, the Texas commit. Jordan Kurz, this going to South Carolina, Hamilton Friedberg, UCLA, Gavin Huddle, USC, Marcus Grice going to DCU. Eric Zadunek, the transfer, going to Notre Dame. CJ Weinstein going to LSU. Bear Calvo going to Arkansas. I mean, dude, it's an embarrassment of riches for these
There's
guys.
going to be a Power 4 guy who has to sit the bench. Let's think about that.
100%.
Because there's no way to get 10 guys in the field.
No, like that's what's wild, right? I mean, you're going to have a guy that's committed to a, like you said, Power 4 program that might get, if he's lucky, 30 at-bats and, maybe 15 defensive innings. Like, it's absurd. And then on the mound, you got Gary Morse going to Tennessee, Cooper Sides going to LSU, Blake Killinger, who was a future gamer for us, going to LMU. A sophomore, junior, Sam Principe, is a really good arm for them. And then for me, I think the highest upside arm that I didn't name there, Ethan Torres, has got a chance to be, the next one for Olu there on the mound. So it's just an embarrassment of riches. It was hard to not pick them as the favorite over Bosco in the Trinity League, but I mean, it's 1 and 1A in my book.
Yeah. That's why it's the best league in the country.
Right. And I mean, that's
to be the champ, you got to knock the champ off.
And that's not even talking about Santa Margarita, who's been in the finals 2 of the last 3 years. That's not talking about Jay Serra, who's absolutely loaded. It's not talking about Mater Dei, who made a really deep run last year.
Yeah, lost a heartbreaker in D2, like extra inning heartbreaker.
Right, and they bring a bunch back, and they got a couple of transfers. And Servite's always really strong competition for these guys. So it's like, this league it's absurd.
It's
And
the
it's
SEC.
awesome.
That's what it
Yeah.
is. It's the
The
SEC of high school.
right?
Yeah, there's no easy day. Like
Right.
you don't just get to roll out the balls and say, okay, we can take it off today and we're gonna win.
It's
Right,
almost
yeah.
like when you were reading off all those commits, it sounded like a national summer team. You were
Right.
just
Oh, yeah,
reading
totally.
off,
Yeah.
you know.
Totally.
Right.
I thought you were
That's-
reading off Arkansas's roster.
Just to put it in perspective of the talent they have, and it's like, you know, if these guys were to go anywhere else in the country, I think, you know, it's like, hey, this is the guy, and they have
Right.
like 10 of them on one team.
Yeah.
So
Right. If those guys are in 10 different states, they're the number one player in their state.
and some of them might not even play this year. And you know, it's just baseball's
Right.
baseball.
Right. Before we keep going, make sure to check out prepbaseballreport.com. Again, preseason previews, Power 25 starting next week. We'll have assuming the rain holds off, we'll have our daily scout blogs, and our daily roundups coming out. So just make sure you check out prepbaseballreport.com. If you're watching on YouTube, please click the subscribe button, as we'll be having a lot of content coming out throughout the high school season as well. But all right, we talked about teams, we talked about leagues. Now let's talk about some players that we're really looking forward to this coming spring. And Hank, we're going to start it with you, an Arizona commit who you've been high on for a while now, in Aiden Diome.
Yeah, I mean, talked about Aiden, you know, for some time, but you know, he's one of the very few kids up here that I think has, you know, got a shot to, you know, really get, you know, be in the draft. He's a left-handed hitting shortstop, you know, could fall back on third base, worst case, but you know, the frame, he's 6'3", he can run, he can hit, he could throw. I think the big question is he able to play shortstop, you know, and you know, I think that's part of the big chip on his shoulder this year, but the bat, wherever he goes, it's going to play. I mean, he hit over 450 last year, you know, 15 plus doubles, you know, 6 or 7 home runs. The kid's just, wherever he goes, he plays. And whether he goes to U of A or, you know, goes to the draft, I think he's a kid to where he's going to adjust pretty quick. And, you know, like he said, his character is off the charts. Makeup is great. I've been fortunate enough to work with him a little bit off the field too. And, you know, a kid you can see that just works hard and you can see the gains go up, and, you know, you can't say anything better about him. So, I think Aiden's in for a really good year, and, you know, I know they have a lot of seniors back and they're looking to win a section. So yeah, good luck to Aiden.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that what you mentioned there, the question about can he stay at shortstop long-term? My hope is that he proves that he can this spring. So,
Absolutely.
Yeah, there's a lot to like there with Diome. All right, Vinny, we touched on him just briefly, but Andrew Jimenez out of Elsinore, Virginia commit. I know me and Hardy had a chance to see him during Scout Ball. I believe you did as well. You also saw him in the spring. This is a guy whose upward trajectory, at least in my book, is insane.
Yeah, so I think when we talk about guys who can stick at shortstop long term, Jimenez absolutely can stick at shortstop long term. Hit 400 last year. Seemed like he's just on the barrel every single at bat. Smart baseball player that can run. One of the games that I had on him, he reached base 3 times, walked twice, hit a single, stole 3 bases. Makes some plays at shortstop that a lot of guys can't make, and he makes them look fairly easy too. Balls to the backhand side. Just plays the game where if you walk up to a baseball field and you don't know a guy, your eyes are just going to kind of stick to him. And Jimenez is one of those players, in my opinion. And don't let the frame fool you. He's probably 5'8", 5'9", but like the way that he plays, like he plays bigger than his frame. He can hit for power. Had 4 homers last year, 2 triples, 8 doubles, 36 hits, drove in 20. Like he had a monster year for Elsinore. And I know that I talked about Elsinore. They have like some guys in their lineup and their rotation. I wouldn't say they're a one-man band, but like he definitely the headline of their roster, right? Like when he goes, they go. And I think that he's just a guy that is going to play well at the next level at Virginia, going to be there in 2 years. And like you said, Les, like he's a guy that has a chance to be really, really, really good, more than he already is right now. And one more thing I wanted to say with Hardy, like we were at area code underclass. He was one of
Yeah.
the best players among all the
Yeah.
guys that were there at Long Beach State. I mean, impressive.
The hit tools. So like you said, the fact about him being able to play shortstop long term, that
Yeah.
kid can flat out hit. Like it's a
Oh yeah.
true ability to hit.
He reminds me a lot of Nick Allen, who's now in the big leagues. Similar size.
Yeah.
The hit tool was elite for Nick as well when he was in high school, and the ability to play shortstop is what separated him,
Yeah.
from guys bigger than
Yeah.
him. And so there's a lot, at least to me, there's a lot of similarities.
I think there's just a little more pop with Andrew than Nick had. I
in
think
high
that
school
might
for
be
sure.
I think that might be the separator, but that's a
Yeah.
great comp
Yeah.
because Nick was probably a tick better defender. Andrew's got a tick better pop, but that's a great comp.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Yeah. It's like
All
you've
right,
been doing this for a while or something.
Yeah, hey, every once in a while, squirrel finds a nut. All right, Hardy. Let's kick it over to you with Erod and Carson Cerny. You're double dipping here, but
That's what I do.
We'll allow it because both these guys, I think, are ready to have a big year. Especially Erod, who made the decision to not play football, where he was an all-league guy as a freshman, and is now putting all of his focus into baseball.
Yeah, I think I picked these guys for two different reasons. For Erod, it's the move that he's making. Like we talked about, one, giving up football and focusing on baseball, which allowed him to kind of redefine his body. He's added strength, he's added power. He was already a dynamic athlete, but that ability to put more time into being a dynamic baseball player. And the thing with him is he's going to get to show it in a different way this year. They have a shakeup with their program. He's been the starting catcher for 2 years. They lost their center fielder. He's going to go out. He's going to play center fielder for them. And it's going to be an opportunity to showcase that athleticism. I saw a video of him last week. He hits a double. He scores on a sac fly. And he was already like a 6'6", 6'8" runner. He looked like he was running like a 6'5". Like it was explosive when he went to home plate. So I'm really excited. Like, he was a 400 hitter, I think a 500 on base percentage, 500 slug last year. I think we may see another 400 season, another 500 OBP, but we might see that slug get to the 700 range, which is going to just be electric for him. I picked Cerny because he's my bounce back candidate of the year. This kid was awesome as a freshman and sophomore. He started the Division II championship game for Moore Park against Hart and threw 5 really good innings. He was a one-time USD commit. Junior year kind of got away from him. He swung the bat really well. He hit for power. His future's on the mound, and it got away from him a little bit last year, but I've been seeing a ton of video on him. I've talked to some people that have faced him, and they're like, man, that ball's coming out really good from the left-hand side. I've talked to a couple colleges about him. Like, just pay attention. I think this kid's going to get back to form. And if he gets back to form of what he was as a freshman and sophomore for the Musketeers, that's why I think they're going to be a dark horse candidate, because he's going to be really hard to beat. If he's throwing 88 to 91, spinning a breaking ball and dropping the change in like he was as a sophomore when he was 82 to 84, it's not going to be a fun look for hitters. So I'm really excited for Carson. I've sent him a couple messages like, I need to know when you're throwing. I want to come see you pitch, because I think he's back to what he was before. Les, I love this pick because I think this kid sometimes flies under the radar compared to some other famous names, but we forget he was a Team USA 15U kid. Like he's the guy that played on the 15U team that some of these other guys didn't make, and that's Jordan Kerr's Olu, the South Carolina commit.
Yeah, man, I there's not enough good things about Kurz that I can say, man. I really like this guy a lot. And in talking to Coach RJ Farrell over MLK weekend, I think the thing that made me kind of like him more was just his team first attitude. He's a shortstop by trade. He's going to be playing everywhere on the infield. He's going to play everywhere in the outfield. So, I straight up asked RJ, I said, well, what was that conversation like? And he looked me in the eye. He was like, the kid has been fantastic about it. So it's that sort of attitude. And then you look at his tools, man, the kid can really hit. It's a gap to gap approach. He's always on the barrel. He can run really well. The arm strength's really good. We saw him at the underclass area code games where he stood out on the left side of the infield, mainly playing third base there for the Brewers. He had a few knocks in the games there for them as well. And this is a guy that's already on scouts' radar. It's a bigger body. It's 6'1". It's, probably about $175, $185 in that range, but it's lean muscle. And it's just the baseball IQ and the positional versatility, I think, that he's going to demonstrate this year, playing for Orange Lutheran at all the positions that I mentioned in the outfield and the infield. I think that's really going to elevate his stock. Obviously committed to South Carolina for a reason. If the draft doesn't work out next year, that's a good place to fall back on in the SEC. But Kurz is one of those guys, like you mentioned, Hardy, who he might get lost in the mix, right? You have some of these, quote, famous, end quote, guys there at Orange Lutheran that, are also going to the SEC. But Kurz is kind of like the straw that stirs the drink. He hits in the middle of the order, kind of in that 4, 5, 6 range. And it's the keep the lineup moving type of guy. And it's an ability to hit and play defense at a really high level that really intrigues me about Kurz. And it's a guy that, is going to have an opportunity to play baseball for a long time beyond high school for sure. Hank, back to you with a guy you mentioned during the team previews portion of this, but, a guy that you seem really high on, that's Jackson Tweet.
Yeah, Tweet goes to Chico High School, but he's got some older brothers that have played college ball too, so there is some bloodlines there. But what I've heard about him is like he's got quick twitch. He's not the biggest guy. It's a 5'10" frame, but I heard he could play center, he could defend, and it's a lefty stick, and I'm obviously a little biased about that, but the kid hit, like I said, over 500 last year, and you could say that with any league, but you still have to hit the ball, right? And I think he's one of those kids where he's just a sophomore and he's just breaking the surface of, I think, what he can actually do. But yeah, he's just one of those kids where I think I need to get a little more eyes on, especially just in that Chico area. Just tons of good talent up there, but it's kind of far to get to sometimes. But yeah, no, Tweet's a really good kid. And I think he's got a shot to be one of those guys to, get a future games tryout, and then we can kind of see where he goes this summer. But yeah, I'm really forward to and excited to getting a look at Tweet.
Yeah, that Chico area, again, we mentioned it earlier, a lot of talent up there for sure. Vinny, a guy that you saw last year and starting at shortstop as a freshman, I don't care what league, what division, what school you're doing that at. I mean, that tells you a little bit about this kid's ability. Nate Godbold out of Mount Carmel.
Yeah, Godbold kind of just came onto the scene last year somewhat out of nowhere as a freshman and immediately just started turning some heads, especially for our San Diego staff last spring. Switch hitter, hit almost identical from both sides of the plate in terms of setup, very similar swing, puts really good bat-to-ball skills. Intriguing shortstop. He can also play third base, but he kind of just is a guy that another one like Jimenez, two of my favorite guys that I saw last spring. You come to a baseball field, your eyes just kind of attract, right? And hit over 300 as a freshman, but hit nearly 400 in league play last year. And for Mount Carmel, they won the D2 San Diego section title last spring, and he had 2 hits in that CIF title at San Diego State. Was a little quieter on the summer circuit this past summer, so I'm really intrigued to get back out there and see him. But he's one of the premier shortstops, definitely in San Diego, in terms also our state of California for the 28 class. He's definitely a high-ranked guy, and I'm really excited to see him again. Haven't seen him in a while, so it's gonna be a lot of fun getting back to see that switch hitter at Mount Carmel.
Yeah, and he's a bigger frame guy, right?
Bigger frame guy. It's leaner right now, but it's a frame that you're definitely gonna want to bet on come 2 years. It's wiry, but there's already strength in the frame. He can have some pull side pop, especially from the left side. So I'm intrigued to come back and see him. I think there's going to be some serious strides made for him.
Like 6'2"?
Probably about 6'1" frame. But it's a frame that if it doesn't work at shortstop, you can put him at third base too long term. I think it's a real talent.
Yeah, yeah. Speaking of real talent, Hardy, you got a couple guys here that are definitely next level talent now, and Matias DiMaggio and Trevor Woodworth.
Yeah, I call this one the baby brothers who I coached the older brother duo. I had Matthias's older brother a long time ago on a 14U team. I had Trevor's older brother Josh last year on a collegiate summer league team. Both of those kids are uber talented players. You know, Jesse's crushing the ball at Westmont, and Josh will be a big piece of the Pepperdine team this year as a freshman. But these are kids like we talk about it. The younger brother sometimes winds up being better than the older brother. And both of these kids have the ability to do that. Matthias is a 29, Trevor's a 28. They're both just making their way up the ranks. But we'll start with Matthias. He's our number 3 player in the 29 class. We have legitimate conversations about him being higher. It's a left-handed bat that has stupid power for a freshman, and it's not one of those like he's old for the class. Freshman should be a sophomore. The kid didn't turn 15 till December, so he's a legitimate freshman. I saw him during the fall, and I had heard a lot about him, never had a chance to see him in person. The first thing that stood out for me when I walked in was like, this kid looks like a man. You know, he's got forearm veins, he's got muscles in his quads, he's got strength throughout, and he hits the ball really hard. I think he might wind up being maybe the best position player prospect that I've seen in the Channel League in 20 years. And that's not saying it's going to happen this year, but by the time he's done with high school, in 20 plus years seeing the Channel League, this kid's got a chance to be the best position player I've ever seen come out of that league. Trevor is the other side of the ball. He is a two-way guy. He's playing shortstop for Ventura now. He played a lot of center. You know, they kept his innings down as a freshman mainly because they didn't need him. They had 4 seniors that were really good on the bump that are all pitching in college now. But I just saw him last weekend. It is an easy 88 to 91. Like, it just looks like he's playing catch. They don't have the greatest mound at Ventura High School, so he doesn't get a lot of leverage off that thing. He's doing a lot of it with a very not primo facility, but it came out live. It was strikes. He's getting a feel for a breaking ball. I had a chance to talk to him afterwards, and I looked at him and I'm like, you're 6'6". Why are you playing shortstop? Like, what's going on here? He's like, oh, they need me to. And it might be a legit 6'6". Like, I'm short, so my height perception is not always the best. But if he's not 6'6", he's 6'5". Like, he is put together. I have a feeling he's not going to be as dominant on the mound yet because there's some command stuff. He throws strikes, but he's got to get his command better. He's not going to get himself in trouble walking guys, but I'm really excited to see what he does. Like, these two kids are going to be the follows of the Central Coast for a while.
Oh, that's awesome. But you were really high on Woodward's brother 2 years ago as well. I mean,
yeah. And it's, and it's funny. I know the old pitching coach at Ventura High School. It's a new staff there this year. But the old pitching coach, he's just like, you think Josh is good? Wait till you see Trevor. And I was like, come on, don't sell me this. And I saw him throw on opening day last year. And I texted him after the game. I'm like, I take back everything that I said. He's going to be really good. And you said something about a squirrel. Every once in a while, a squirrel finds a nut. And Ben Lewis is one. I saw him as a freshman. It was actually the first event I ever scouted with MLK for prep baseball. It was an MLK event at Santiago High School. I saw Ben throw at the very end of the game, 2 innings. He was a skinny, scrawny little freshman. And I'm like, this kid's going to be really, really good one day. And he has become really, really good. And that's Ben Lewis, the Oklahoma State commit.
Yeah. Lewis, obviously, like you mentioned there, the Oklahoma State commit. I mean, he's seen a significant uptick in velo. He's up to 92, touching 93 pretty regularly now. But I think the thing that really stood out to you in that viewing was his changeup. Yeah. And that changeup just continues to get better and better and better, if that's possible. And then, obviously he's got a hammer for a breaking ball, which you would expect from any guy that's being coached by Mike Cosgrove there on the pitching side, who, really hammers home the importance of having a good breaking ball. But the uptick in velocity is something that has really impressed me because it's not a huge frame. It's 6'1", maybe touching 6'2", and but it's loose, it's repeatable, the clean mechanics. Everything that you kind of mentioned about what you saw in the freshman is like starting to come to life here for him. Obviously he committed to Oklahoma State last year during the summer, and I think that took a big kind of load off of his shoulders. And shout out to Oklahoma State; they're doing a phenomenal job here in SoCal and in California as a whole. But yeah, Ben is, he's going to probably be the one or the two there for San Diego. Yes, they've got some really good arms and some really talented arms. Tommy Padilla, Troy K. I won't butcher his last name. And obviously, but when it comes to pitching, Ben Lewis might be the best pitcher that they have on their staff with that 3-pitch mix. The fastball up to 93, the plus changeup, and then the hammer breaking ball. And so he's a guy I wanted to, talk about a little bit here because the progress he's made on the mound, obviously resulting in a commitment to a Power 4 school is one thing, but now it's kind of like he's going to be pitching with a burden of expectation that I think that he hasn't had, outside of his personal expectation, right? I mean, he's got that expectation now of, dude, you're gonna shut it down for us, right? And so it'll be interesting to see how he responds to that. And Hank, we're gonna go from one Okie State commit to another. And Josiah Morris is a guy that you've been fond of for a long time, and a name you're constantly throwing out to us.
Morris is he's a stud. He's one of the, I think, very few kids up here who's got a shot to play multiple positions at the D1 level. Because I mean the big debate right now with Morris is like, okay, is he going to play short or is he going to catch? I think he could do both, and I've seen him play both. Like, he's just that athletic. The best way I can describe him is he's kind of like Buster Posey. He kind of just does it all. And then the kid can hit. Like, we did a workout out in the, early, I think late, wintertime, and everything was just hit, a piss rod off this guy's bat. And then in the infield that's short, there's obviously some stuff to clean up, but it's like you can't teach those instincts, right? Like, yeah, you could tell him like, all right, you're rolling your glove a little bit, but like his first step to like get to the ball is just above average, and you just don't really see that in a lot of infielders, But yeah, that's a kid where I think he's going to be able to play this game a long time, and whether OK State uses him as behind the dish, at short, or throw him in the outfield, he can really do it all. And I think he kind of gets overshadowed in that Bay Area just because there's so much good talent. But he's a kid to where I think you're going to hear about Morris, whether he hits at OK State or he's playing pro ball somewhere. But that's a kid I think he gets just a little overshadowed. But no, he's a stud.
A real deal for sure. Vinny, Jaden Parker, right? We've known about Jaden for a while now. Was out at the pro case for us last summer. Went out, had a really good summer, by all accounts, but really opened some eyes at the Super 60 here recently.
Yeah, Jaden, from all reports, sounded like he did really well at the Super 60, which was in Illinois. And I'm just really intrigued to see how he carries into his spring season. Came back from last year at 371, 39 hits. And something I'm really excited about is that there's a little bit of a shakeup this year in terms of league play. They're moving up to the Western League with Cathedral Catholic and Patrick Henry. So I'm really happy that Jaden Parker is going to be in front of, a little higher level of competition after them coming off back-to-back CIF titles in the lower division in San Diego. So Jaden is going to face some better pitching. I think that's going to bode well for him in his senior year. There's talks, could be a draft guy. If not, I think that he's going to play 4 very good years at Indiana. I think that he's a very good Division I player at the next level. Like Hank said, with another shortstop, I think there's a few things that he could clean up at the shortstop position, but you can't teach the body and the frame, the profile. He's 6'3", 210 pounds, just pure athlete. So I think that's something that I would love to bet on in terms of Jaden Parker with figuring out the tools at the shortstop position. And if it isn't shortstop, I think there's other, positions that he can really excel at. But I think it's the hit tool that's continuing to get better for Jaden. Looking at video from the Super 60, it looked like the swings leveled out a little more, and I think that's going to play really well for him his senior year. But in terms of just tool shed in San Diego, he's at the top of the leaderboard for me, and I think it's going to bode well for him this spring. He's going to have a big year.
You mentioned the physicality, right? That was one of the things that we heard from Shooter and from other guys that were out at the Super 60. Like he is physically put together, which is awesome, right? A lot of guys don't take that too serious when they get going that summer into their senior year. So it's good for Parker, man. I'm fired up because he's a great kid. And I like that you mentioned that if it doesn't work out at shortstop, there's other options because the arm really plays.
89 across the diamond.
Yeah, I mean that arm will play, and the athleticism will really play up in the outfield for him. Hardy, a left-handed pitcher that you've been fond of here for a couple of years now, Mason Majewski, out of St. Joe's up there in the Central Coast, just continues to get better and better.
Yeah, I love Mace. I stumbled on him when I made my first trip up the coast 2 years ago to see St. Joe's play Cabrillo. And at that time, Cabrillo was the class of that area. They had a really good upper class. They were dominating. But this little freshman came in for St. Joseph's in relief after their starter just scuffled, couldn't really, find the strike zone. Mason comes in and it's like 80, 82. I didn't know anything about him. You talked about Ben Lewis's changeup. Mason was just spotting up this unbelievable change, dropping a nice loopy breaking ball in at the time. And I remember watching like, hey, this kid's got an idea to pitch. Like, who is he? And I pull up Max Preps and I find the name and I'm like, this kid's a freshman? Are you kidding me? Like, it was a super clean mover. The arm action was easy. And now my radar goes up even more. Like I'm really paying attention. It was a good outing. He winds up getting the start when I go back up later on. They played in the semifinals. I believe it was the Central Section D2 semifinals that year. And he, threw a really good game against the Tascadero, who wound up winning in just a thrilling game, but he pitched well. Mason's just continued to get better. It was 80, 82 when I first saw him. As a sophomore, it was 84, 86. Saw him in scout ball in the sun. The very end of summer, start of the fall, it's up to 87. I've heard he's starting to get 88, 89 from the left side. The changeup keeps getting better. The breaking ball keeps getting better. He's adding strength. It's a lot of I think it's very similar to Ben Lewis. And just he's from the left side. He's now going to he was the ace last year, but he's the undisputed ace. The number 2 is now off to college, and it's Mason Majewski's team this year. And I think he's ready for that spotlight. Cal Poly slow commit. He's going to stay close to home for college. And I think it's a fantastic commitment for him because he's just going to keep getting better, and SLO has produced some professional arms that have been drafted out that go on to pretty good careers. So I'm excited for Mason, and I think he's going to be a fun one. I think it's very similar to that Ben Lewis talk that you had. So we go from Mason to what might be one of the most intriguing players in a loaded Trinity League because of what this kid can do on both sides of the diamond, and that's Jack Janeski from J. Sarah.
Yeah, we all had a chance to see Janeski during scout ball in the fall. I had a chance to see him last year in the spring, and it like Vinny mentioned earlier, when you get to the park and you see a guy and your eyes are just drawn to him, it's like that's him, right? It's a big body. It's 6'4", somewhere in that neighborhood. But when you have a freshman playing shortstop in the Trinity League, that really intrigues you even more. And that's what he did was, he played some shortstop last year. But what really impressed me was seeing him on the mound. I saw him in an MLK game before spring last year, and he came out and it was, 86, 88 with a really good slider. And it's like, okay, like who's this guy? And just talking to some of the Jay Sarah guys, like, yeah, that, he's a freshman at Jackson Eski, and it's like, okay, that's a name to file away for sure. During scout ball, right? I mean, that velo's ticked up. I mean, it's touching 90, 91 pretty consistently. The slider's really good. There's feel for the changeup there, but it's like, I don't want to pigeonhole him as a right-handed pitcher only, because his ability, he's going to start at shortstop for them this year, right? And when he doesn't pitch, guess what? They're going to bring in, or pardon me, when he pitches, they're going to bring in another freshman to start at shortstop. So it's just, the kind of the embarrassment of riches that we've talked about for some of these Trinity League teams. Jay Sarah certainly has it, but Janeski is really fluid, really smooth at shortstop. Obviously, the arm plays, seems to be able to make all throws, no matter the angle. He gets to balls really quickly, kind of like Hank talked about with Morris. That first step is really good especially for a guy his size. He's very rangy. Can put, play to the left, play to the right. It's a smooth player at shortstop, and one that's getting really, really good on the mound there for Jay Sarah, and a guy who, sky's the limit, right? We talked about all these power forward commits in that league and on some of these other teams, and there's no question in my mind that Janeski is going to have that opportunity. And especially if he ends up coming out to the future games for us, it'll absolutely happen for him. And it's a good transition from a guy who was a really good player, Hank, and came out to the future games and got that power forward commitment in Colton Hadfield.
Yeah, Hattie, just another kid to where we all saw what he did this summer. But I think I was thinking about it earlier, and Hattie you remember Christian Koss?
Yeah.
He kind of reminds me of Koss.
Like that.
Because Koss is from that Riverside area. Yep. Hattie's a Bay Area kid. Koss went to Irvine, but I mean, Hattie's going to UCLA. So, I mean, their tool shed's kind of the same. I think what separates Hattie is his arm. And because it's like, he's 90 plus across the diamond. So it's like, hey, if short doesn't work out, you could always throw him to third. But I think he is a true shortstop. He's one of the guys that I think, he could actually pick it. Kind of like in that Morris thing, you can't really teach his instincts. But I think with his commitment now, he's kind of solidified himself as a lockdown guy and, a top end national guy. So he took over last year as a sophomore. And I think this year the team obviously had a lot of seniors that were, very talented, but, I think Hattie's, he's got everything in his back pocket to, get that Valley Christian team right. But, I think you could always throw him on the mound is my thing too, is he's been up to 93 this off season. And, he's 6'1", 160 pounds. He's kind of like McElry a little bit, where you still got 10, 15 pounds to, get going. But no, Hattie, I think he's going to tear it up this year.
Yeah, I didn't realize he was up that high on the mound. That's legit. I like that Christian Koss comp, though. I do a lot. I mean, I remember seeing him at King under Coach Madrill there, and when he was a sophomore, and I was like, Steve, who's that guy? And he looked at me straight up without hesitation. Was like, he's got a chance to play the game for a really long time.
And I remember playing against him at Irvine, and I'm like, who is this kid? Like, he's legit. And, now he's with the, the big leagues, and I can see Hattie kind of doing that.
Yeah, for sure. Vinny, a guy who might have a similar trajectory. I remember seeing him as a sophomore in the CIF championship game, the Division I game down in San Diego, and he ran out to right field, and I looked at Matt Monk and I said, Matt, who is that guy? And because that's what it should look like. And it was Parker Smith, and he ended up going 2 for 3 in that game and threw a guy out from deep right field at home plate. And his game has just continued to elevate.
Yeah, I think when you talk about top right-handed hitters in San Diego, like Parker immediately just comes to mind for me. Like you said, his sophomore year when Poway was in the Division I championship, was a 346 hitter his sophomore year. Hit 393 last year for Poway, hitting in the middle of their order. And the one thing that I love about him is the power that's really like developing for him in the batter's box. He had 2 homers his freshman year, 2 homers his sophomore year, 2 homers his junior year. But I just want to make everyone understand that Poway is a really hard place to hit at. It's definitely a pitcher's park. It's a big yard. And if for any like for people to understand how much power he has, he came to our state games and 106 exit velo, and he was just launching baseballs. It seemed like, heavy barrel. He's also a 6'7" runner. Can put him at first base, put him at third base, but I think his long term trajectory is in the outfield, like you said, in right field. At the next level, he's going to play center field this year for Poway, but I think at the next level, you're looking at a potential right-handed powered bat that you can put on the corners of left field, right field, present hit tool. But like you said, it's what it's supposed to look like. 6'2", 190. It's cut, looks like a football player when he's out on the baseball field. And, a lot of those guys who have those body frames tend to trend in the right direction as they progress into their college years. And that's a big reason why he landed the commitment to Michigan. And I think Parker Smith, even though Poway's in a little bit of a down, spot right now where their program is, he's the guy that you can kind of rely on, and he could carry a lineup, I think. And I think he's going to have a monster senior year, and it's going to carry right into his college years.
Yeah, he hit a ball at UC Irvine during scout ball, Oppo Taco, that was a line drive that cleared, that just, it went about a good 60 feet beyond the fence. That was just like, oh my.
Yeah,
Like,
and he's a really good kid too.
and I thought to your point, I thought he was a football player, but apparently was a basketball player too, right?
He's an athlete.
Yeah.
The kid is an absolute athlete. I think he has played football in the past as well, but obviously baseball is where his bread and butter is. But like you said, it's what it's supposed to look like, and that's going to bode well for him.
Yeah, no doubt. All right, Hardy, you're double dipping on us again here, but it makes sense here because they are siblings, and we got Baby Chef and Big Chef, right? If you throw in a Mama Chef comment in there, you're gonna be
Mama Chef and Papa Chef. We're gonna get the whole family in here.
You're going to the Chef Hall of Fame, but the Sheffer brothers, man, the internal competition between those two guys is awesome to see. But and it's hard to pick which one I like more in terms of like future baseball talents, because both are just really, really good.
And I think that's actually why I picked both of them, is they got a chance to play a little bit together last year. Ryan didn't get up till I think the start of April, spent the last month to 6 weeks with the varsity team. But now you're looking at both of these guys are going to be together, Ryan and Carson, for the entire year. I think that's one of it is it's fun. Mama Chef, Papa Chef, they get to see their two boys together for a full year. But then you pointed out the internal competition between two kids who are both very talented. Carson's chasing the draft. Ryan's chasing being one of the best players in Southern California, maybe the nation. And I think that competition between the two of them is really going to drive them to some really, really good seasons. Carson, he had his the appendicitis at the end of last year. It kind of slow played his summer for him. He came back like a ball of fire in this fall and basically took the onus of like, okay, I kind of got overlooked this summer because I was hurt in a way that I couldn't control. Went out, changed his swing, made some movements where he's now starting to tap into more power. He's getting to it easier. The arm is a hand cannon. As somebody else tweeted about the arm being electric, and I've been trying to tell people this for 3 years, so I'm glad people are finally starting to listen, that Carson may be the best catcher in the state of California and is amongst the best in the nation. I think you said this about Colton Hadfield, Hank. If Carson doesn't wind up making it as a position player, somebody's going to put that on the mound and it's going to throw 100 one day because the arm is so good. But I think he's got a long-term future ahead of him as a catcher. And Ryan's so much fun. And it's the difference in the personality. Like Carson's got a personality, but he's a little more businesslike. And where Ryan is just this dynamic, like he's got a freaking personality to him, and he makes it so much fun when you're around him and you get that interaction with both of them. That is awesome. And I'm excited because Carson's been one of my favorite for 3 years, and I'm going to be sad when he graduates, heads off to his next venture, because I'm not going to get to see him play in high school baseball anymore. But I know I got Ryan coming for the next 3 years, which is going to make it even more fun. So,
Ryan's got some Spicoli in him, minus the extracurricular activities that Spicoli was involved.
yes, you're just on the comp game today. You're just crushing the comp game today.
They're just great kids, man. They're awesome kids.
So we're kicking Les. This kid, he threw against a team that I know very well, and I remember talking to their hitters after they faced him. I'm like, "What was it like?" And they're like, "The fastball's good." We're like, "The breaking ball that comes out of that kid's hands is not fair for somebody that's only a sophomore." And I'm going to butcher this, Kikoya De La Torre from Miracosta.
Yeah, De La Torre, I was at that game out in Palm Desert. I think I texted you guys or I texted you, Hardy, and was like, hey, who do we got on San Marcos? And because De La Torre was carving. The breaking ball, as you mentioned, is presently above average. The fastball in that 86, 87 range is, he works it side to side, up and down. He's got pretty good command of the fastball. The breaking ball is the separator right now. We saw him out at the preseason ID down at J. Sarah, where he threw a pen, and it was really good. I mean, he showed flashes of what could be a really good changeup for him as well. It's a bigger body. I want to say 6 foot, 6'1". There's some physicality to it now, but it's, projects to add a little bit more strength as well. He's going to be one of the guys for Miracosta this year. He'll be in that top 3 of their rotation, where they're going to rely on him to kind of, keep the streak going or end the streak, right? And he's got those kind of traits to him. Just talking to him a little bit at the preseason ID, he's got kind of this, prove it attitude, which I really like. Like, he's out to prove that he's one of the better pitchers, not only in the Bay League, but in all of Southern California. And he's got the 3-pitch mix now to back it up, I think. But, I think it starts with the breaking ball, then it goes to the fastball, then it goes to the changeup. Mechanically, it's pretty clean. It's loose. He can deliver, throw strikes with all 3 of those pitches in any count. And I saw that out in Palm Desert in that tournament where, he got a strikeout with each of those 3 pitches. The changeup, he was way ahead 0-2 and got the strikeout. With the breaking ball, he was, even count 2-2. And then the fastball, he just kind of threw, he set up the fastball with those other pitches. So just a really intriguing prospect there for Miracosta, who's going to get a lot of innings for them. But Hank, we've talked about Clovis North. You mentioned Davis Wilson a little bit there, but there's 4 guys in that region that are just legit arms. So I'll let you kind of touch on all those guys.
Yeah, and I'm not going to go into too much detail, but I did want to bring up these 4 arms in particular. First off, the fact that they're within 45 minutes of each other, all 4 of these guys. So that's kind of the big thing. And we'll start off with Hirschkorn. Obviously, he's going to LSU, but, the thing, too, about these 4 guys is you have 4 guys that are committed to, Power 4 schools, and they're draft guys. So that's, with the whole landscape now, I think that's super hard to find, especially within a drive down the freeway. But yeah, like Hirschkorn, he's going to LSU. He's at area codes. He was 9 Ks, 3 innings. What more could you want? You're 94, 97, whatever. He was, no one could hit him, right? And so
I think there was 2 foul balls in that whole thing.
Yeah.
Right. It's kind of stupid. And then it's like, oh, let's go up the freeway a little bit. Let's go to Logan George's. He's going to TCU. Another guy who's 93, 95, big 6'5" frame. And, it's like those are 2 big potential draft guys. And then you go down the street. It's like, all right, Davis, you're going to Vanderbilt. And he actually quit football to pursue this whole baseball thing. And now it's like, he's a national guy. He did the All-American game, and, he's a potential draft guy in that area for next year. And then, you close it out, you got McElry, right? A kid we didn't really know much about. And just from seeing him put on the display at the Stanford preseason as a position player, it's like, And if you could do that as a position player, what's the mound going to look like this year? Right. So, I mean, just having those 4 guys in your backyard, it kind of just seems like Fresno's the place this year where all the arms are at, just for me at least. But yeah, those 4, it's, you know, it's kind of crazy that you can get that. But, you know, you can also say Olu, you know, you got about 10 of those guys. But, yeah, just the Fresno area is just doing all the way down to Visalia. They're doing something right. Something's in the water.
I'll never forget when McElry took the mound at future games, and I looked at you and I'm like, where the hell did you find this guy? It was
picked him
electric.
up off Avenue 193 in Exeter.
Yeah, it was that was special.
Yeah.
Man. That was special. I mean, I'm so happy for him and his commitment because,
and that's why I love going down there too. Because I mean, then again, it's like Hardy was talking about the Baco kids. It's like Ridgeview has 2 kids going to Fresno State that are legit arms. It's like, where the hell's Ridgeview? Like, not a lot of people know where Ridgeview's at, you know?
Right.
So, you know, that whole Fresno area is just, you know, like we said before, it's our Texas.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I love it down there.
Yeah, no doubt. All right, Vinny, your last guy over at Bonita Vista. Some people have referred to him as a biblical figure. Kenson Johnson out of Bonita Vista High School.
Yeah, Kenson came onto the scene last year as a freshman. Another guy like Godbold started at shortstop and really just came onto the scene and put up big numbers, right? 339 hitter as a freshman and 115 at bats, 39 hits, 29 runs, 16 driven in, 2 homers, 2 triples, had 8 doubles. Like, he really just put on a full display in the batter's box as a freshman last year. And one thing I love about him is it seemed like he really hasn't even figured it out yet, right? It's kind of a, you know, somewhat of a goofy frame that he's still growing into. 6'3", 177 pounds. And it's kind of just a frame that in 3 years we're going to look at and be like, wow, this kid is really physical, similar to kind of how we talked about Jaden Parker, in my personal opinion. 91 across the diamond at our state games. And it's a longer arm action across the diamond at shortstop, but I can't teach the arm strength and the ball carry that he has out of the hand. He's a 706 runner in the 60. And I think when he continues to, you know, develop the body and grow into the frame, I think that speed is going to end up, you know, being a sub-7 runner as a shortstop. I think long-term you could put him in the outfield too because he's such a good athlete. But I think just the tools you can't teach. And I think that he's going to have another big season as sophomore year. He's going to hit, I think, a lot of home runs. He hit a home run at Poway, which, like I mentioned, is a hard ballpark to hit in the playoffs, and it cleared the fence by 40 feet. And, you know, he just gets into baseballs when he gets connected and, you know, really has power that you can't really teach. And I'm really excited to see where he goes from here.
Yeah, he was also really good for us at the state games last year for the couple of days he was there before he went off to the area code underclassmen.
Yeah.
Defensively, excuse me, and his BP were pretty eye popping for sure.
Yeah.
Hardy, your last guy here, Orion Gonzalez. What do you got?
This is going to be a fun one. He was a standout. He's at Castaic High School, one of those teams I talked about being a dark horse in that Foothill League. He jumped right into what was basically a very senior-heavy team last year. As a freshman, he took over a middle-of-the-order spot for them, played a lot of second base, DH'd. He put up a 300, 400, 500 slash line as a freshman. You know, he was kind of, I don't want to say a soft body. He just hadn't physically filled out last year when I saw him in a Saturday game. Liked the swing. Had a chance to see him at a scout team tryout in January, and boy, did this kid go to work on his frame. Like, it was chiseled, it was athletic, it was strong. He was hitting with a wood bat, and he was launching balls to the pull side. Les, you've been to VC, you know where that tree is in right field and the scoreboard. He put a ball in the tree during BP with a wood bat. It's very impressive for just a sophomore, and we've only talked about what he does as a hitter. This kid was their closer as a freshman last year. He threw 22 innings, did not allow a run, not an unearned run, not an earned run, nothing. Nobody scored against him. He struck out 24 guys, walked just 7. Opponents hit only 093 off of him. They had a 181 on base percentage. Talked to him at that tryout. I'm like, you gonna throw more this year? He's like, I might start, but our coach kind of wants to keep me in the closer role where I can come and basically shut down both games each week. This kid's super talented. Like, he's going to make a real, and I think I texted you guys after that and said, Orion Gonzalez, sleeper candidate, future games team. I think he's trending that way, and I'm excited to see what he puts up as a sophomore out there. All right, Les, you're going to round us out, and I think this is a fantastic way to wrap this whole thing up with maybe the best uncommitted player in the state of California in any graduating class, 26-27, Carter Hadnot, the shortstop at Aquinas.
Yeah, you took the words right out of my mouth. And actually, I think I published that in my preview, right? I mean, this guy is so talented. And I certainly don't think he's uncommitted for a lack of options. I think he's just kind of taking his time and, making sure that he's got the right fit, going on his visits and taking as many visits as he possibly can before he picks a school. It's a left-handed hitting shortstop that can stick at shortstop and is going to eventually, I think, hit for some power. It's kind of doubles power right now with the gap-to-gap approach. We all saw him at the area code games. He put on a show. I think the biggest thing that separates him is the instincts that he plays with, right? Whether it's on the bases or it's at shortstop. We talked about Morris's first step. The first step for Hadnot is, it's on par with Seward, right? We had them both at the pro case last year, and those two guys were in a group, and it was hard to tell who was who, right? If it wasn't for Hadnot's longer hair, you wouldn't be able to tell. These guys, he is uber talented at shortstop. The arm strength plays, worst case, absolute worst case, you move him over to the second base, and he's a high average, high doubles guy there. I think the power is going to come. He has some sneaky power currently, but I think that's going to start to show itself a little more consistently. He runs well. He defends at a very, very high level. He hits at a really high level. He handles good pitching, handles bad pitching. He's, incredibly instinctive player. It's just the guy that I'm incredibly high on. He's been a top 6 or 7 player in our rankings like since his freshman year, and he hasn't come off that. So that ought to tell you something, about his abilities, on the baseball field as well. You get him off the field. We had him in the dugout there, obviously at Pepperdine for the pro case. Doesn't say a whole lot, really mindful, really businesslike. I like those type of guys. He's locked in from the second he got there, to the second he left, after the game. It's just a really intriguing profile. My understanding is that he's added a little weight since we last saw him at area code games, some good weight, which, obviously bodes well for the profile as well. So Carter Hadnot, like you mentioned, Hardy, one of the top premier uncommitted guys in the entire state. Heck, you could even say the country, certainly in the 27 class, because he's that good.
Yeah. I think you said it the best. He's not uncommitted for lack of options. He's uncommitted because he's picking what option is best for him.
Yeah.
I think the thing that I see with Carter, I know from being up here, but he's like matured pretty quick too, just from I remember hearing about him his freshman year until now. It's like he's polished now.
Yeah. That's a good way to put it. He's really polished on the field, which is something that we weren't polished the entire time this podcast. But hey, it was a good one. Went a little long, but it's a big state, a lot of teams, a lot of players. Yeah. So we appreciate everybody sticking on and listening to this podcast. Make sure to click the subscribe button there on YouTube and check out prepbaseballreport.com for all your news, ranking, and event information. So for Hank, for Vinny, for Hardy, I'm Les. Thank you for listening. And until next time, we'll see you at the